Okay, so I just read the first paragraph about this sutra. So this talk about the background of this sutra. So William, you know where Jakarta Vana Vihara, right? You know where is that, right?
Near Sravasti.
Yeah, but I know what's special about this, you know?
The Jetavana Grove.
Yeah.
It's like a grove of trees. What's special about it? It's not where his first sermon was.
Not this first one. Yeah.
Is it where wasn't there like a king that donated something?
No.
Was it that one?
You see the name Cheta here?
Yeah.
So the story goes like this. So a wealthy layman, he went around to search for the land to donate to the Buddha, but he could not until he came across a garden of a prince. You know, remember that story now? And the prince uh, make a joke to him. If you could lie down all the gold on the land of my garden, I will sell this to me, to you. You don't remember that story?
Mm.
And so this layman, this is wealthy man, so he's so glad that he went back to carry his gold, and he lied down all the golds on the surface of that garden. And so the prince came up and said, well, I just joking with you. I'm not supposed to sell this. I didn't think that you would have enough gold to lie down on the ground of my garden. So this wealthy man turned around and said, wow, you are the prince. In the future, soon later, you'll be a king. One of your words is so important that you need to keep your promise. So later on, the prince recognized as he could not step back anymore. So he recognized the layman's sincerity, and he said, well, okay, I sell this land to you, but I will donate the tree to the Buddhas. So that's why it has the name of Jetavana. Yeah, Jeta, that's mean the prince name. Yeah, Vana is the monastery, and Yesavati, that's the story there. Evan, you have not heard this type of story before, right? Okay, yeah, and this is mainly with our heart. You know what's mean our heart, like Evan? Event, sorry. You know what's mean our heart?
Yeah, I don't know that word.
No, that word. Yeah, would you like to explain what's our heart is?
Yeah. An arhat is like a level of achievement where the individual has dissolved the sense of self, and they've also, in doing so, they've cut off all desire. So they don't have any more craving, they don't have anger, they don't form any new karma that's like compulsive karma. They don't have to be reborn after they die, but they enter nirvana. It's sort of like an intermediate goal that initially the Buddha preached as the goal, but then later revealed it to be like an intermediate goal on the way to the like bodhisattva way and ultimately Buddhahood.
Yeah, even I think a lot of term this feel brand new to you, right? So yeah, if you could have patience, you can learn more. Yeah, because this sutra is very advanced, right? And again, if it's too much, let us know. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ty shared the book with me. Reading over the book, the Arhat, his last trip around the sun. The sutra is covering 6th, 7th, and 8th consciousness, where 6 is mind, 7th is subconscious, 8th is mental library, and the transcendence and jump in between and understanding how each interacts to then remove self, correct?
Not really. Not it doesn't relate much about the consciousness yet. We talk about the level of enlightenment. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, an arhat, that's the one that no mental fluctuation. Their mind so peaceful. Their mind so calm. There's no trace of anger. There's no trace of craving. There's no trace of desire or anxiety and so forth. Their mind so stable. So that's what art is about.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why they who have crossed the stream of transmigration, that's mean the mistake. So they don't make any kind of mistake at all because their mind so calm, their mind so peaceful that they don't do any kind of karma, like William just mentioned. So they follow the Buddha to turn the wheel of law. That's mean the teaching. They do the teaching, and they are so self-disciplined. It's a good example for the three words. The three words mean desire, the desire word, the form word, and the formless word. They appear in countless transformation body. They deliver living beings. So that means for this type of arhat, they can transform in any form they want to teach others. So it's a Riputra, the wise one, the foremost wise one. Maha Mariana, the one that has second power, and other arhat. Yeah, yeah. Would you mind to witness, please?
There were also countless Pratyeka Buddhas who, since they had conquered their old habits, had nothing more to learn, yet came to the Buddha's vihara determined to seek ultimate truth. Now the summer retreat had just finished when the bhikshus took stock of their errors and mistakes, and when the bodhisattvas from the 10 directions, determined to wipe out their remaining doubt and suspicions, reverently awaited the teaching in their search for its esoteric meaning. And so the Tathagata arranged his seat and sat with crossed legs to proclaim the profound doctrine. Such a Dharma feast to purify the assembly had never taken place before, and his melodious voice was hard as the 10 quarters. Led by Manjushri, a number of bodhisattvas as countless as sand grains in the Ganges had come to the holy place.
Okay. What do you think about this part?
Okay. So, the Pratyeka Buddhas is another term, which are individuals who have attained enlightenment. Generally, they're like living solitarily, and they don't have any interest in teaching other people. And the distinction between Pratyeka Buddhas and Arhats, I've forgotten that distinction between them, because they both attained enlightenment.
Yeah. The Pajra Buddhas means solitary Buddha. They attain enlightenment by themselves. No one taught them. They recognize basically the 12 clean conditions by themselves. That's why they attain enlightenment. There's no one taught them, and they would not teach anyone. So that's what we call solitary Buddha. Yeah.
Okay.
But for Arhat, yeah, they follow the Buddha teachings.
And then the Buddha's vihara, I'm unfamiliar with that Sanskrit word vihara.
This is the temple.
Okay.
This means the temple or the monastery. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then end of the summer retreat, the monks, the bhikshus, are reflecting upon their errors and in order to like not commit the same errors in the future. The bodhisattvas are like renewing their motivation, their energy to the bodhisattva path, and they're looking, they're wanting to hear the teachings to understand its, the meaning, in order to understand or to realize that mind that the teachings flow from, its esoteric meaning. And so the Buddha sat cross-legged and was, began to speak, and his voice was beautiful and he could be heard clearly in all 10 directions. And also a lot of like countless bodhisattvas came to listen as well.
And the leader is Manjusri Bodhisattva, right? Can you share briefly about the Manjusri Bodhisattva?
Oh yeah, Manjusri Bodhisattva is identified with wisdom, so he's like the bodhisattva that personifies wisdom, and is generally depicted with a flaming sword kind of over his head like this, and that sword being the sword of wisdom that can cut through ignorance. And so in sutras, when Manjusri is referred to in some way, it's generally, he's like the representation of wisdom. So it's helpful in interpreting, what's being said, by understanding that that's what Manjusri stands for.
So event you follow, right? Ivan, right? You follow? Yeah. So again, for this kind of sutra, right, Mahayana Sutra, we see that not only the Arhat, but also Bodhisattva. So what do you think, William, in the Theravada tradition, they can focus on the monks, but in most of Mahayana Buddhist Sutra, they include great Bodhisattva, and their number is limitless one. So I'm asking about in religious way of explanation, do you think it's possible to have limitless number of Bodhisattva came to attend the Buddha teaching during the Buddha times? What do you think? In religious way, not in
a realistic way. So we certainly, it could not have been in physical bodies.
No.
Yeah. So if we're saying, most people, I would think realistic would be, they wouldn't consider, other ways which they could be present. If we wanted to, we could be realistic. We could consider quantum entanglement. Quantum entanglement really, to me, opens up a whole possibility of things, because we've basically demonstrated that. Tay, you know what quantum entanglement is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've demonstrated that two objects separated in space can have immediate communication between them. So to me, it would make sense that consciousness itself is entangled, that all conscious beings, there is some connection between us, and that for those who are enlightened, who are awakened to a sufficient degree, that wherever those bodhisattvas were, they could direct their attention to a Buddha. If a Buddha was about to preach, if they had an affinity with that Buddha, if the causes were right for them to be aware, that the Buddha was going to preach, from whatever world they were in, they could, get still and listen.
You know that in the Flower of the Moon Sutra, it said that after attain enlightenment, the Buddha taught the great Bodhisattva around the Buddha trees for those 49 days. That's in Mahayana views. But in the Theravada view, no, he just stay around that 49 days to contemplate and be ready to teach. So this relates to most of the Mahayana Buddhist Sutra again. So it's not easy for us, the common people, to recognize, right? But for them, right, Arhat and the level of Arhat, the level of Buddha, so they are in different paradigms, right? So for me, it's just It's no big deal. It's not trend. What do you think?
Well, I think, like, you know, if a flower blossomed,
Mm-hmm.
we could say, oh, the flower blossomed. And that'd be kind of like, oh, the Buddha stayed and he contemplated and prepared to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And like that, you know, that's true. But we could say, we could describe the DNA and how the DNA, certain signals opened up the DNA and caused certain proteins, you know, certain genes to be translated or transcribed and translated into proteins. And those proteins led to changes in the cell surface. And you could describe it like all of this beautiful world of how the flower blossomed. So if the Buddha is going to be teaching, well, you know, there could be all of these other beings that are assisting in that teaching and that are part of this phenomena of the Buddha's enlightenment, that it really kind of feels like it makes sense and it fits that there would be these beings ready to assist a Buddha in teaching the Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, I think it's very beautiful, and it feels like it matches. In the beginning, I think I had a lot of doubt on that because I wanted everything to match like my experience.
Mm-hmm.
But as my experience has expanded, this seems reasonable.
Mm-hmm. How about Evan? What do you think?
I agree with William on it's like tuning a radio. When you tune a radio to a certain frequency and begin to speak or broadcast, other people are able to turn to that frequency and hear and receive because they hold the same frequency, they hold the same energy or level or understanding. I really like that section of the story too, because it really personifies the Buddhist context of walking the path, right? It's Bodhi showing up to hear the sermon, but they are walking the path to meet the Bodhi of wisdom where they are to then testify or hear that story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your example of the same frequency, right? It's just so important, right? That's what I'm talking about. They are in different paradigms, right? They turn on different frequency than us, right? For us, we could not catch up with that kind of frequency yet. But for them, they were there, right? So that's why it's just for me at first, like you mentioned, William. At first, it's not easy for me to understand, but later on, I can recognize us and accept that because they live in different paradigms, and if we have some type of attachment, we get stuck there. But if we let go of some type of attachment, we see things in a beautiful way. For example, let's say now we don't smoke, so we free come and go. But for those people who smoking even cigarette, they get stuck with the smell. They get stuck with the chemicals, and they cannot get it go. And that's why they, whenever they hear that type of whenever they smell that type of cigarette, they get stuck right away. But for us, no matter what type of cigarette that we smell, we move on. So we don't have any kind of what do you call bias or prejudice toward any type of cigarettes. But for them, they know they got stuck for that. They get stuck with some type of cigarette there. I just give one example. It makes sense, William, right? So that's why for Bodhisattva and Arhat, they don't have any kind of attachment at all. So they view things in different views. But for us, we here, we have all kind of attachment, all kind of problems that cloud our mind, that we could not see that type of realm. So for me, it's just normal to have Bodhisattva, limitless number of Bodhisattva come to listen to the teaching. Yeah, and also I believe in the Flower Roman Sutra, it says that the Buddha taught the great Bodhisattva first, after his enlightenment. And I think it's logical way of explanation. Like let's say if I invent anything, right? Let's say I invent some type of cell phone, right? I would let the one that like to use cell phone, the one that loves cell phone to know. I would not let anyone that would not like to mess around with cell phone. It makes sense now. So after my invention, I would let this kind of invention out to the one that are familiar with my project, than the one that may not know anything about that. So the Buddha, so after his enlightenment, he just spread his teaching, his enlightened teaching to the Bodhisattva, the light mind one, so that they could recognize how lofty or how profound his teaching are. And or let's say if I write an article is about anything, right, in academic field, the only one that follow my field could understand what I'm writing about. For the elementary school student or even high school, even college students, sometimes they may not understand what I try to read unless they are an expert. They are expert in that field. It makes sense now, right? So I think it's nothing strange when the Buddha stay around the Bodhi tree to teach his most profound lofty teaching to the great Bodhisattva first, and later on he used some means to teach everyone else. Is that reasonable, William? What do you think?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think those are really good examples.
Yeah. And also like you can explain anything that you working out to common people, but they may not understand, like the one that are in your field, right? And then any situation. Okay, so let's move on then. Event, you like to read this paragraph, please?
Proclaim the profound doctrine.
Yeah, meanwhile.
Meanwhile, King, I don't know that word.
Parsenachi,
who was keeping the anniversary of his father's death by offering vegetarian food to him, came personally to invite the
Tathagata,
Pahanga,
yeah,
to the inner palace for a royal feast of best and rarest delicacies, to which he also invited the great Bodhisattva to the assembly. In the city, the elders and devotees also offered food to members of the order and reverently waited for the Bodhi's arrival.
Probably you don't know this king, right? William, you know about this king?
No.
So this king, he was born at the same year as the Buddha. And this king was one of the great supporters of the Buddha. So yeah, we can study about his life. Now, William, you can recognize a difference, right? For this king, he offered vegetarian food. And if we read the Theravada Sutra, Pali Sutra, there's nothing that mentioned about vegetarian food, right? Have you been in Thailand? Have you been in Thailand or Sri Lanka? Or have you offered any food to Theravada monks before, William?
No,
No,
I haven't.
I think in Naples is some Thai temple down there. Have you been there?
I have treated people who go to the Thai temple.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I have a few patients who have. Yeah.
Anyway,
I've never gone.
so in those kind of tradition in Thai, Burmese, and so forth. It's still rare for the lay people to offer vegetarian meal because whatever they eat, they would offer to Buddha or the monks. But here, that makes different. Like this Buddhist, this Mahayana Sutra is mentioned that this king intentionally offer vegetarian food to the Buddha and his Sangha. And he also invited Bodhisattva too. Again, how could he recognize who's Red Bodhisattva were? You know, William, what do you think? See that?
Well,
That's a turning point, right?
yeah. How would you know for sure? Well, I mean, generally the bodhisattvas, the way they're depicted is they usually are adorned when they're depicted. I mean, I don't know what they're looking like when they're with the Buddha, if they dress like the rest of the monks. To someone who has like a sensitive spiritual eye, they probably like appear to be radiating light. For a normal person, if they weren't dressing differently than the monks, I'm not sure how they would know.
Especially he's the king, right? For Buddha and Arhat, definitely they would recognize those enlightened people, right? But for the king, the normal king, it's not easy for him to recognize. But here, this sutra is say that he invited Red Bodhisattva in the assembly too.
Because he doesn't say he invited the Arhats.
He did. Yeah, he said in the city, the elder and the devotees also offer the food to the member order. That's mean the monk too. Yeah. 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 So anyway, so in general, he invite everyone, and the only thing that we may see that he invited Red Bodhisattva. So how could this king recognize who Red Bodhisattva were?
Well, if Manjushri had his flaming sword with him, that would be a dead giveaway.
Probably not. Probably here's to put this way. Somehow, even during the Buddha times, this type of king, this type of supporters, they have some kind of awakening skill and some kind of recognition. They have some type of spiritual skill, spiritual attainment. That's why they could recognize this great Bodhisattva. And remember, even in Theravada tradition, it says that most of the kings or whoever encounter the Buddha will attain some sort of spiritual attainment from the first day Arhat up to the third day of Arhat. Most of them, not all, but most of them, especially for those main supporter. Make sense now, William? So that's why for me it's nothing strange. They have that type of recognition for those who are ready to discover. Ivan, you follow? You follow our
I do follow.
Yeah.
I imagine to some extent it's the same feeling as like when you meet someone for the first time, but you're like, I know you. Where have we met before? Or the eye knows just on a greater extent.
Okay, yeah. Okay, let's see here. It's my turn, right? So we start 8:30, right? We study for 1 hour, right? And you think from now on we start around 7:30 instead of 7 is convenient for you, or you want to be later?
I think 7:30 is really perfect. That like on days when I get home a little bit later from work, it'll give me like at least 45 minutes before I need to jump on.
Sure. But Ivan, is this okay? 8:30? No, sorry, 7:30 is okay with you, right?
7:30 is okay. It pushes a little late if we run all the way to 9 o'clock, but it'll be okay.
No, we stop by 8:30. We study 1 hour, as you know.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So all right. Ananda's weakness, the reason for this sermon, commanded by the Buddha, Maitri took Bodhisattva and Arhat to a royal feast. Ananda, however, had not come back from a distant engagement, and so was not among the invited. He was returned to Vinaya along without his super teacher, and bow in hand went begging from door to door in a nearby town. He intended to call first on the donor who had not given food to the monks that day, regardless of whether or not he was virtuous, noble, or an outcast. In his practice of universal compassion, he did not especially choose a poor man as his patron. He wanted to have all living beings earn countless merit, for he has seen the Buddha school Subhuti and Mahakashipa who public in our heart could not recognize or realize universal mind. When begging for food, he very much admired his teaching, which had eliminated all his doubts and superstitions in this respect. So let me go back to the background of this sutra, right? So the Buddha's Red Arhat and Bodhisattva were invited by the king to the royal palace to enjoy the feast after the summer retreat, but not for Venerable Ananda. Venerable Ananda at that time he's still common monk. He has not attained any arhatship yet, but he carried the bowl to beg for food regardless of who they are, with his universal compassion that he wanted to create a chance for whether poor people or rich people to offer him the food to create the merit for them. And he recognized, remember that the Buddha is called Subhuti and Mahakashipa. We talked about that last time, right, William?
I don't think we did, because we talked about Subhuti and Mahakasyapa choosing, like, one of them only chose poor people, one only chose rich. But I did not realize the Buddha scolded them for that.
Yeah, actually, that's why. Because Mahakashipa, he referred to beg food from the poor people. Subhuti, he referred to beg food from wealthy people. Is that strange, Evan? You understand what happening? You don't follow?
I do follow.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
You,
so William, can you give some background? Yeah.
Or all earn countless merits. The goal is everyone achieves enlightenment regardless of wealth or status.
Yeah. So basically, the Buddha's called Subhuti. He referred to beg food from the wealthy people. The reason why is that because he explained in the way that for the wealthy people in the past, they had very good karma. That's why now they're wealthy. But if they don't practice any kind of generosity from now on, later on, they will be poor. But for Mahakashipa, he did opposite way. So he begged food from the poor people, and he create the chance for them to create good merit, because in the past life they didn't create any kind of good karma. That's why they poor. So now he gave them the chance to offer the food so that they could be wealthy in general, physically and mentally later in the future. So that's why both of them uh, went to beg food from different group of people, and that's why Ananda he follow what they call universal compassion, that he would accept anything from other people regardless of who they are, whether they're poor or rich.
Daddy.
Yeah. Follow, you follow even?
I do follow.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, William, please.
So when he reached the town's gate, he walked slowly, adjusting his mane to the rules of discipline. As he went begging for food, he came to a house of prostitution where Matangi, a low-caste woman, succeeded by means of Kapila magic in drawing him close to her sensual body on the mat, so that he was on the point of breaking the rules of pure living. But the Buddha was aware of all this, and after the royal feast, he returned to the vihara with the king, princes, and elders who wished to hear about the essentials of the Dharma. He then sent out from the top of his head a bright and triumphant multicolored light, within which appeared a transformation Buddha, seated with crossed legs on a 1,000-petaled lotus. The Buddha then repeated the transcendental mantra and ordered Manjushri to use it to overcome the magic and to bring Ananda with Matangi to the vihara. So, right, Ananda was returning back to, or he was still doing his begging rounds, and this woman who was working as a prostitute had used this mantra to entice him, but the Buddha's wisdom and vision, the Buddha was aware of what was happening. And after returning to the temple, the vihara, emitted this multicolored light, and in it showed that this Buddha, so a transformation body of the Buddha, and then the Buddha repeated this mantra, this transcendent mantra, and told Manjushri to bring it to Ananda, so that he could, and then to bring Ananda and Matangi to them. So here we see one that, the Buddha's like compassion and also like penetrating awareness. And there was another question I had while I was reading it. I think this is interesting that the story was set up that, so Ananda was setting out. It seems like it should be meaningful that Ananda was setting out to be impartial. And we talked about this, Tay, where he was attempting to imitate the Buddha, and not, really well-intentioned, like thinking he's doing the best thing. And then that's when he comes across this sort of, it's more than a temptation, because it's not just that he saw her and she was beautiful and he had desire. It was that she used the special like power, I guess, to kind of connect with the small amount of desire that was left in him, to try to take advantage of that. So I do wonder if there's something that's being said there about, because that's the backdrop being the attempt to be impartial, but it leaving some sort of vulnerability, where if you're impartial, well, you may find yourself around people who are ill-intentioned, and there are powers that serve those who are ill-intentioned, so that perhaps this sutra and the teachings in it, the mantra, are means to help those who are being impartial practice that safely.
Okay, there's a lot of things we talk about this one, right? First of all, so even you would not understand why a low caste woman try to tame the monk, right? You understand that?
I do. It's propagating or showing that she is dirty or beneath in structure.
So in India, even now, they classify people in 4 main caste system. The first one is the priest, the Brahmin priest or the Hindu priest. The second one is the royal class. And the third is the business people. And the last one is what they call the low caste or the slave one. So even nowadays, if people have what they call inter-caste marriage, that's terrible thing happening. That people couldn't accept that. Not talking about more than 2,500 years ago in India. So, but in Buddhism, yes, we accept everyone regardless of who they are. And the background of this story is that this lady, Matangi, somehow she met Ananda several times before. And Ananda in the certain type of sutra described that he has 32 special marks. Actually, he was handsome like the Buddha, right? So that's why this girl, she somehow loved him so much that she went back to ask her mom to give her the spell, Kapila magic of the spell to tame Ananda. Now let's pull it back here. So what do you think? Do you believe in black magic? Have you seen any kind of black magic, a spell around? Of course, I know William. When you went down to South America, right? There's different story. But I'm talking about here in this country. Have you ever encountered this kind of black magic, a spell here?
Just
I'm asking William. Yeah, William. What do you think?
Not that I know of for sure. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, Ivan, have you ever?
Yeah.
Can you share?
Intention is power.
Yeah. How was that?
How was that, or how is that?
How is that? How that type of black magic a spell before?
Black magic intention. If someone desires or places wants, the body or the mind can follow, be that in a physical context, right? Body pheromones, pupil dilation, nostril dilation, all the way out, which then facilitates a response by the one being cast upon, or all the way up to a magic context of a belief or understanding of reaching beyond to a higher power or something else in intention and setting intention.
Okay. So what do you think, William? So because in the West, we focus more in material life, not much with the spiritual life. That's why we don't see that type of spell, that type of black magic around much. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe so. I'm not sure. Yeah, it does seem to be more prevalent in countries that don't have as many like as much development. Maybe there's less I don't know, less distraction. Maybe the people here that were going to get into black magic, instead they just play video games and watch TV, like, and they never develop the ability to do curses, or I don't know.
Like the event that you encounter in South America, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have this type of first-hand experience with this kind of magic and spell.
Mm-hmm.
So what's different in one country? It's happened in another country would not have much problem with that. What do you think? Is that because of people mentality is different, or what?
We don't really have the same roots either, because most cultures like that are like still in the location where they were developed, they have elements of that. They have elements of knowledge of ancestors and ancestral spirits, but also they talk about like dark spirits as well, pretty much all over the world. But in the United States, the native people who were aware of and talked about that, well, they were all just killed for the most part, or, you know, there's maybe 95% of them were. And then all of the people who like migrated over, I think really lost those cultural roots or awareness of those. And the dominant religion, Christianity, I mean, it's not a big, I mean, it's a small belief, but it's decreased as time has gone on in our country. So there's just not a lot of, yeah, I think it's a development, but it's also not being tied to some sort of ancestral roots, like a culture that we came from, where it's just kind of forgotten that that's a thing.
Ivan, what do you think?
I agree with William too. Like the predominant religion in America, you know, Christianity in the US, Christianity did the Inquisition. They deemed war almost on tribal knowledge, and even in Europe, like obliterated nomadic cultures all the way back through history in a Christian context. But also too, I think it's patriarchy versus matriarchal societies to some extent. Christianity is very patriarchal, and witches are bad. The matriarchy is bad, oppressed in some way. And cultures that allow a unbroken lineage of female knowledge have more access or insight into some of these, as we view as magics.
Okay. Yeah, since time is up now, let's just stop here, and it's still interesting topic for us to discuss next time or next Tuesday. Unless I'm busy or unless you're busy, let us know, right? So that we can continue to study the sutra. So Ivan, how far you understand? It's no problem up to now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's made sense. You handed off the book Sunday to me, and I made it up to meditative study of all as void. I started in on that this morning and over some tea. And
yeah, I know you have that type of enthusiasm to learn. That's why I invite you to join here.
I appreciate it.
One more time, this Kaba Sutra is really profound. And again, if you could not guess any points, to stop us so that we can go slow, can learn together. Okay. All right. William, is this okay, William? Right?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay.
I just put it in my calendar for next week.
So next week will be 7:30, right?
That would be excellent.
Thank you. So see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
See you then.
Bye.
Yeah.